Welcome to my third ever van build video. In this video, I'm going to walk you through every single step that it took to take this van from an empty shell to the compact, space-saving camper van that it is today. This van took 30 days to complete and I have everything I need in here. Obviously, I have a bed. The bed folds out the way in just 3 seconds. I've got a projector screen so I can watch things in my miniature cinema. I've got a split screen monitor for my CCTV. I've got a diesel heater. I've got a full power source that gets charged up very nicely when I drive. I've got storage. I've got an induction hob. I have an air fryer. I have a microwave, grill and oven, a large work surface for food preparation, a 12-volt fridge, a sink and 2 fans that cover the side windows so I can get some nice airflow through the van. Now, just to get the boring bit out the way, the van itself is a 2021 Ford Transit Custom. It is the active version, which means it comes with the alloys, the sort of side rail step thing, 2 individual nice leather seats, and it's an automatic. The reason why I have this van is a smaller van than my last one, but I just wanted something a bit more compact and automatic, something a bit newer, and also I wanted to show people that it is possible to fit everything that you want into a small space and still have room to move around. And one final note before we get into the build. Over the last few years, I've done a lot of research into the insurance companies that are reliable and actually pay out when you have an accident or something happens to your van if you have a self-build van. And the only company that I found that I really thought was worth recommending is Howden, or Howdens maybe. And I've spoken to them and they are willing to give anybody who watches this channel a 10% discount on their quote. So I'll stick the information for them in the description below. But that's enough talking for now. Let's jump straight into the build so that you can see how this van came together. So the first job is usually to strip everything back to the bare metal, but in this case this van happened to have some sort of insulation in place already and a bit of sound deadening behind some of the panels. So I've decided I'm just going to leave that in place and I'm going to put some better stuff over the top as well. And the only job that I've done so far is I've cut out these holes for the little side windows. These windows here were already in place. And also, if we look up on the roof, I have cut out 4 holes, small holes like that, and that is on each corner. They are for my CCTV wires. And on all of the holes, so that's the 2 window ones and the 4 on the roof, I'll just put some black paint on there. That is direct to metal paint, and it is to prevent any rust in the future. Right, so these are the old ply panels that came with the van. I don't like that carpet, so they're either going to be recarpeted or I use them as a template to cut out some new ones. But I've put them up here temporarily for now. The reason being is that I just wanted to mark out where that window opening is so that I can cut it out later from the ply. And that is the windows in. They're all glued up and the tape's just going to hold them there until the adhesive sets. So on all 4 sides of the roof now, we have the CCTV cameras. They're just stuck on with sticky pads. And for now, the wires are just coming down inside, ready to be connected up later. To stop the cables flapping around in the wind, I've just used these cable clip tie things. And then I've just put a bit of white Sikaflex around the base bit here. Underneath that Sikaflex, there is a little rubber grommet, and that just takes the wire straight through into the van. I've added some additional sound deadening just around this window, and then I've finished it off with a thick layer of Sikaflex just to make sure that it's sealed from the inside. Now, there's only one company that I trust for my sound deadening and insulation products. So this is the sound deadening stuff here. And fortunately for me, the stuff that's already been put into the van is the same stuff. Now, this is the thermoliner from the same company, and it's this silver-lined insulation. It's self-adhesive and it's great at keeping the cold out in the winter and the heat out in the summer. So I've stuck this on all of the walls and the back doors, and also I've covered the entire ceiling. So I'm just insulating these wheel arches and it's made such a difference. So if I put my hand on that bit of metal there that's just got the sound deadening on, it is freezing cold. Over here, that is a nice room temperature. This is the one that's just been fully finished. So ignore this cable, that is just the temporary fairy lights that I've had running in here in the evenings. And ignore the cabling down there, that is for the electrics that's going in, but I'll get to that later. For now, I've just finished carpeting every part of the van that needs to be carpeted. All of the gaps between the panels and the back doors, and also the sliding door as well. That has not been done yet, but that will be done with carpeted ply. So this is Thermofleece, another great insulation product from Dodomat, and I've just put this into all of the voids, and that just gives that extra layer of protection in the winter and of course in the summer to keep the heat out. So I'm just in the middle of carpeting the ply panels to go on the walls, and what I've done is I've put this metal tape around the edge of the window cutouts there, so that when the carpet's all on and they're in place, if I want to put magnetic blinds up, I can, and they should snap easily to this surface. So that is all of the carpeted panels in place. Now the back doors and the side door, they have been screwed in, and all the rest I've just put in using these trim clips. At the moment, I haven't put all of the trim clips in because I do need to gain access to these panels to get to the cabling. So as you can see, some of these are just blank holes, but they are all now in place. Using this thing here, which is called a draw wire, I've poked it through a hole which I've made in the back of the carpet here, and there's a hole drilled through that metal. That comes down to the back of this panel and then across to that panel. And then I've just taped a cable to the end of it, and now I'm gonna pull this wire through this side, and it's basically gonna run the cable down from here all the way out to here. Using that same method, I've now got 3 cables run. They all start in that bit there because that's where the fuse box is going to be. One of them runs up this pillar and pops out here. That's ready for the fan that's going in. The other 2 run further up this pillar. One of them you can see comes across the ceiling, and that's for the fan on the other side. And the third one just pops out there, and at the moment I've just got it tied to the roof there, but that is going to be for my ceiling lights. And that is now the floor insulated with the Dodomat thermoliner. And now the 12mm thick pre-cut ply flooring has now been screwed in place on top of that. Now before I put that ply floor in, I actually used it as a template to cut this out. I've gone for this sort of concrete effect. This is the underside here, and this is a safety flooring, which is a bit different than the standard vinyl. It's a lot more hard wearing and a lot less likely to rip. And using the same spray glue that I used to put the carpet on the walls, I've now stuck that down to the ply. And that is the Autoterm diesel heater installed neatly under the passenger seat. The next job was to sort the cables out for the ceiling. So all of the white ones, they are going to be for the lights, and they're currently just taped to the roof. And I've extended the CCTV cables, and they are now running neatly out the back. And on top of all of that, I've just glued down some of the Dodomat Thermofleece. I've cut some holes in the ceiling ply, and now those pieces have been screwed in place and the wires popped through for the lights. And you'll notice I've drawn a line right down the center of the ceiling, and I've also done the same right down the center of the back of the material that's going on the ceiling, and that made it nice and easy to glue down the center line to make sure this is fully aligned all the way down. The rest of that has now been glued in place, and as you can see, I've put the lights in there as well. They're all wired up, and I've just tucked the material up and around the back of the ply just to neaten up the edges. So none of this has been drawn on paper or pre-planned. I've just sort of looked at what I want, and then I've pieced it together bit by bit, and it's come out pretty nicely. So this is my kitchen unit that I've started to build out of ply, and I've just added this end piece here. So that's the sink on top. I'm going to have all my water bottles behind there, and the fridge is going to slot into this section at the front. And finally, this is the base for my bench seat, and this little unit down here is going to house the ducting for my diesel heater. Okay, I changed my mind and I ripped out the old grey floor, and it's been replaced with this wood effect safety floor. And the units have now all been screwed in place. The fridge has been fitted, and so has the sink. I've fitted the fans to the side windows. They're just screwed into the van, but there's a cable that runs behind this panel and connects up to the cable that I left there previously. And as for the blinds, they're magnetic and they just stick onto those strips of metal. And you can see on this side, I've just covered up those strips with some grey fabric. The microwave grill and oven has been fitted under there. We've got the induction hob on top. So a quick rundown of this electrical system. That in the back there is the D1 hub. That is going to connect to my power station via that big cable there, and that will give me 50 amps at 12 volt. That then runs into these 2 fuse boxes where all my circuits will be coming from, like my lights, my fridge, my TV, my CCTV. The one on the bottom is for things that I want permanently on, and the one on the top is connected to a switch panel so I can turn them on and off whenever I like. That other unit up there is just the recording system for the CCTV. And if we look behind the seat, down in there, that is the charger which is connected to the van's battery, and that will come through and charge up the power station whilst I'm driving. And above the entire unit we have this board here, and that is the base of the bed, which is on a hinge system, so eventually that will come down and meet on top of that unit underneath. And this is only in a temporary position at the moment, but that is now the power station plugged in to the rest of the system. And I've just put a switch panel on here so that I can control everything to test it. And as you can see, we now have lights working in the van. So this small end unit is now screwed down to the floor. I've just put a little vent in there, and that is going to connect to the diesel heater through this ducting. And on the end of it I have this little white pop-up board. I also have one on the front of the bench seats here, and a third one as well. And not only can these act as little tables, but they're also there to act as additional support for the bedboard. I've now just added these brackets onto the base of the bed, and these serve two purposes. Firstly, they're going to stop the mattress from sliding towards the wall when the bed lifts up, but also there are magnets screwed into the back piece there so that when it lifts up, they attach to the brackets and hold it firmly in place at an upright angle. So this is my toilet of choice. I think it's the best option for a small van. As you can see, it fits neatly underneath my bench seat, but when you need to use it, you can see it extends upwards to a more comfortable height. So the way it works is it just pops out of its base, you turn it 90 degrees and then just sit it on top. And this is what it looks like when it's back in the base. Now you can open this up to see that it is indeed a separator toilet, which is exactly what I was after. And it even has an anti-splash system in the front container. It's called the Tribolo Wondergo. As with all of the products in this video, they will be linked in the description. And I've now just fitted these bed slats in place. They're literally just fixed down with bits of Velcro on the end of each slat. Not only does that make the mattress a bit more comfortable because it's not resting on a solid surface, but now there's a gap between that board and the bottom of the mattress, and that prevents any issues with condensation and mold. I've now made a top piece for this end section here. I've also added a top piece for each section of the bench seat. The switch panel is now neatly in place so I can run all of my appliances from that, and the diesel heater control is underneath. And talking of appliances, I've also added an air fryer into the mix, and that is a bamboo block there for the kitchen surface with a glass chopping board on top. Behind the passenger and driver seat, I've added this little blue strip of wood along the top. That is going to hold the cab divider curtain eventually, and then in front of that I've just put this projector screen, which pulls down, and that will sit nicely above the end of my bed. And at the end of that blue strip of wood, I've just added a simple bolt there, and that goes down to hold the bed in place. And there's also a heavy duty bolt on the other end, and that's just going to secure the entire bed system whilst I'm driving. The plumbing is now complete, so I have my fresh water tank and the waste is behind it. And inside the sink we now have a plug hole and a fold up tap. All of the loose cables have now been run inside this white trunking to neaten everything up. And I've also run a black piece of trunking above the seats here. That has a cable running to this mount, which is for my GoPro. The other one is to the mobile Wi-Fi router. And the third one is this DC power cable, which drops down the side, which has now been plugged in to my CCTV monitor. So I've just made a couple of changes. This top piece here and this top piece here were originally white, but I've just switched them out for the blue wood. Unfortunately, I've also had to switch out the diesel heater vent. That is because the other one was blowing air straight into this side piece here, and now this new piece blows it up and above the bench seat. And using this sanding block, I've just gone along all of the edges of every piece of wood in the van to neaten it up a little bit and remove any saw marks. And that is now a blackout curtain fitted between the cab and the back. I've added these finger holes into each section from the top of the bench seat, so you can just pop those off easily. They're secured in place with these little kitchen cabinet latches. And finally, I've added this swing out table to the back of the bench seat. It can stay tucked away when it's not in use, but it can also be brought out so I can use that to eat my dinner and do some work on the laptop. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where I'm up to with this build. Like I say, there's a few more little bits to do. And if you want to see the entire thing, the entire build series in detail, I have made a Patreon just for that. They're roughly edited videos, but there are 30 of them, one for each day of this build. I've literally filmed every single thing that happened, so I'll put the link down below for that as well. And that'll be alongside the link for the insurance company, which I said you will get a 10% discount if when you ring them you let them know that you found out about them through my channel. I've been with them for a while now. I've recommended so many people that are also happy with their service, plus they cover me to go into Europe as well. So I don't need to worry about finding a new insurance provider for my trips abroad. But that is about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching the van come together. If you want to watch the adventures that I'm about to go on, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss that. I'm literally leaving tonight, and also there are plenty of previous adventures, such as where I drove to the Arctic in my last van. Thank you guys for watching this one. It is massively appreciated as always, and I will catch you next week when the road trip begins.